Let me tell you about a phone call I get at least once a week. Someone contacts me, calls, texts, emails, and tells me they have a great deal. They are excited. They use words like motivated seller and below market and huge upside. So I take the call, and within 90 seconds I realize I'm talking to someone who watched YouTube videos about wholesaling, decided they understood everything about real estate, and is now wasting my time. This video is about that person. And if you're thinking about getting into the business, I want you to make sure it is not you. The first problem, and the industry has documented this extensively, is that most new wholesalers and bird dogs have absolutely no idea what a good deal actually looks like. They cannot run comps. They do not know how to estimate renovation costs. They have never thought about carrying costs or what an investor needs to buy a property at in order to actually profit on the back end. What they know is what the seller told them or what the listing price says on Zillow. They take that number, add their fee on top of it, and call it a deal and expect to be paid. Experienced investors say this plainly. What looks like a good deal to the wholesaler is frequently not a good deal for the investor at all. The numbers don't account for the real costs. The margin just isn't there. That is not a deal. That is a math problem you're handing to someone else to solve. Half the time, they are not even bringing something that couldn't be found on a phone. They are sending a Zillow link, a Realtor.com listing, something posted in a Facebook group that 10,000 people have already seen, a property that's been sitting on the market for 4 months, publicly available to anyone with internet access. They have not called the agent. They have not spoken to the seller. They found a public listing and forwarded it to me. And they want to be paid for that. It is like someone calling you up and reading you the menu at a restaurant you drive past every day and then asking you for a tip. And then comes a question that tells me exactly who I am dealing with. What's your buy box? Now let me be fair. Understanding what your buyer wants is a legitimate part of this business. Of course, you should know what kind of deals the people you work with want to buy. That conversation matters, but here's the problem. New wholesalers or bird dogs are actually being taught to use a buy box as a search filter. Industry training instructs them to interview investors, collect their exact criteria, and use those parameters to filter listings. Type in the numbers, find something that matches, send it over. They use the investor's criteria as a search filter instead of learning analysis themselves. It's like hiring a guide dog and then leading it around yourself. Let me give you 2 real-world examples of what this looks like. I got a call from a woman who told me she had a great investment property. She sounded confident. She sent me a Redfin listing. A nice house, clean, updated, well-maintained. The listing agent had told her it was a great investment. I asked about the price, full list price, no reduction. I asked about terms. The seller was not open to creative financing or any flexible structures. Straight conventional sale at full price, not even a seller concession. I found myself wondering why she had called me. No discount, no favorable terms, no motivated seller, nothing that would make this work for an investor. She heard the words great investment from a listing agent whose literal job is to sell that property and called me and expected me to buy it. Wanted to throw a rock. And here comes my favorite. Other times I get calls about potential, the upside, what a property could become. There's an extra lot that could be built on, an ADU that could generate rental income, a garage that can be converted. And they try to sell me on all of it like they are pitching a startup company or trying to sell me a vacuum cleaner. Here's the problem. The ADU does not exist. The rental income is $0 because there's nothing there to rent. Those lots have not been developed. None of that upside has been realized. I and a vast majority of investors do not pay for what a property could be. The price is based on what it is today, not what it might become. The upside is worth knowing about as part of what you plan to do with the property after you buy it, but it is not something you pay for at closing. If you call someone and lead with potential, with what could happen someday, you are not bringing a deal. You are bringing a dream. Serious buyers do not write checks for dreams. Here is what a serious person does instead of asking or relying on just a buy box. They learn the formula. 70% of after repair value minus estimated repair costs, minus the reasonable assignment fee. That is the offer price. That math has been in every real estate investing book written in the last 30 years. Now, depending on your market, there are some nuances, but this in general is the formula. A serious wholesaler or bird dog runs it on every property you look at until it becomes second nature. They understand the math from the investor side of the table, not because someone handed them a filter or a list, but because they did the work to understand why the numbers are what they are. When someone asks for a buy box as their opening move, what I hear is, I do not know how to evaluate a deal, and I need you to tell me what to look for so I do not have to figure it out myself. Frankly, I find it kind of lazy and an insult to professionals in the industry. Now let me be clear, it's not the question that I have an issue with, it's the reason the question is being asked. You are not a business partner, you are just an order taker. Then there is this. Guys, honestly, this one baffles me. Some of these people will not tell you what the property is until you sign a referral fee agreement. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 before you know the address, before you see a single number. They have no contract with the seller. They have no legal interest in the property. They have nothing that gives them any right to a fee of any kind. They have an address they found on the internet and the confidence of someone who does not yet know what they do not know. In other words, they're kind of idiots. No serious professional signs that. Not ever. You're not being clever, you're being laughed at. And trust me, we laugh. Here is where it gets serious, and most people doing this have no idea. Soliciting buyers for a property, acting as a middleman between seller and buyer. Earning compensation tied to a real estate transaction. In most states, that is licensed broker activity. Calling your fee a finder's fee or a referral fee does not change what it legally is. The penalties are real. Fines, criminal misdemeanors in some states. In other states, it's actually a felony. And I didn't know is not a defense. The law does not care how many videos you watched before you decided to understand the industry. Let me tell you what actually earns respect and earns a fee. You have a signed purchase contract, not a lead, not a listing. A contract that gives you a legal interest in the property you can assign. Without that, you have nothing to sell. You have run the numbers yourself. Comparable sales, a realistic renovation estimate, not a number the seller gave you. Carrying costs, a price that makes sense for an investor and still leaves room for a reasonable fee. You can defend every number before you make the call. You have actually spoken to the seller or the agent. You understand why they are selling, their timeline, their flexibility. You bring context and information, not just an address and an expectation. You have thought about the deal from the buyer's side of the table, not just your own. That is the difference between a professional and someone who watched a few videos and decided that was enough preparation. Let me leave you with two things that changed how I think about this business. The first comes from Robert Kiyosaki, the author of the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you have not read it, you need to. Robert Kiyosaki recommends if you really want to learn from someone, if you want to understand how they think and why they make the decisions they make, go work for them. Not for pay, but for the knowledge. I have personally done this. When I wanted to understand commercial real estate a little bit more and how deals come together, I found people doing it and worked alongside them. When I wanted to understand mortgage lending, how money moves, how lenders evaluate deals, and what makes a transaction close or fall apart, I put myself in rooms where that was happening and paid attention. And I can tell you, it's not always glamorous. I've put up drywall. I have painted houses. Not because I needed the work, because I wanted to understand what renovations actually cost and what it actually takes. You cannot evaluate a renovation budget from the outside, in my personal opinion. You cannot learn the why behind an investor's criteria by asking a single question. What's their buy box? You learn it by being in the room when they analyze a deal and say no, by watching them walk a property and hearing what they notice, by sitting across a table when something falls apart and understanding exactly which number stopped working and why. That is what turns a checklist into judgment and an order taker into a professional. Find someone doing what you want to learn. Offer to help. Work for the knowledge. The second thing comes from Bruce Lee, a famous martial artist and action movie actor. In a 1971 interview, he described his philosophy this way: empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. In real estate in general, and especially in wholesaling, this is everything. No two deals are the same. No two sellers have the same situation. No two investors have the same criteria, the same capital position, the same exit strategy. The wholesaler who shows up with one approach, one template, and refuses to adjust when it does not fit will get nowhere. Like Bruce Lee says, be like water. Adjust the shape of the deal in front of you. A seller who will not move on price may move on terms. A property that does not work as a flip might work as a rental hold. A buyer who passes on one deal may be perfect for the next one. The opportunity is almost never exactly where you expect it to be. The professionals who find it are the ones who stayed fluid enough to recognize it in a different shape. And of course, resilience. Water is the softest thing in the world. It yields to everything, and yet it will find its way through the hardest rock, not by force, but by persistence and adaptability. Most calls go to voicemail. Most deals fall apart. Most sellers will just say no, and a lot of agents will push back. Water does not stop when it hits a wall, it finds the crack. Detach from the outcome. Let go of the deal you think should happen and respond clearly to what is actually happening. New wholesalers count money on deals that haven't closed. They stop looking at other opportunities because they are emotionally invested in one that may not work. That rigidity is what kills them, not the market, not the competition, not bad luck. So like Bruce says, be like water. Flow when you can, crash when you must, and never stop moving. If you want to do this seriously, and it can be done seriously, it is a real business when it is done right. Then do the actual work. Learn how to analyze a deal. Learn the law in your state. Learn what a real opportunity looks like so you can recognize it when it shows up in unexpected forms. And this is probably the best advice I can give any of you that are considering and getting into this business or have been in the business for a while as a bird dog and a wholesaler and just aren't getting anywhere. Find someone doing what you want to learn and work alongside them for the knowledge. Stay adaptable, stay resilient, stay honest with yourself about what you are bringing to the table. Because every experienced investor, lender, and agent in this industry knows within 60 seconds whether they are talking to someone who knows what they are doing or someone who watched a video last Tuesday and decided that they are an expert today. Stop being the second person. Good luck out there. We'll talk to you next time.